Hi, everybody, and welcome to Big Joe's Journal. And I hope you all had a very happy Easter. It certainly was a little different from the traditional Easters that we've had. Not quite as bad as a year ago, so, things are shaping up a little bit. But unfortunately, this COVID-19, it seems to be going down in some areas and springing up in another. And I know you look at the statistics and they're really, really hard to believe. Right now, of course, the hot spot seems to be out through the Midwest, up around Michigan. Seems to be having a big problem trying to get it under control. California, apparently it's high, but it is tapering off a little bit. More and more people are getting vaccinated. Seems most of the problems with COVID-19 now is getting to a younger age bracket. And a lot of that may be because we old folks are getting vaccinated or have had a lot of us had our, including myself, we've had our 2 shots. And so should be good for at least another year, I would hope. But it seems to be the younger generation now, mostly your kids at the college age and down into the, into the 20s and even into the teens. But more and more, the ability to get vaccines is opening up. For example, this week, I believe it's from age 40 on up are eligible to get at least their first shots, and maybe some cases second. And then next week, I believe they're opening up to the 30-year-olds. And so we're working on down. By May, the projection is we'll be into the teens and, probably right down to age 12. But according to Dr. Fauci now, there's some of these vaccines that they have, there is no age limit. That they're good for everybody as far as we know. But in Europe, the thing seems to die down, then it seems to start back up again. Now, England, for a while, Great Britain, the British Isles, they were having a lot of problems with it. Now, due to the vaccines, they seem to have gotten it under control, but it's starting to boom again in Italy. It seems that when things get better, people jump the gun a little too soon. And, hallelujah. They go out, start violating the protocols that will keep us all safe. For example, not wearing masks, congregating in large groups, and bingo, the epidemic starts back up again. So will we ever get it under control? Well, a number of states, and it seems to me they're saying this, these so-called red states, where governors are lifting their restrictions. And as they lift these restrictions and people get back together and the restaurants, instead of doing the separation bit, more and more people now are being able to go out and eat. And, summer's coming. People want to get back together. In some cases, out in California, they were using police officers to make sure that people stay separated when they're on the beach. If that's at all possible. That's an almost impossible task. And of course, this weekend, for Easter services, in the Christian faith, whether you're Catholic or Protestant or whatever, for many, many people are unable to go to church. Because in many cases, you had to make a reservation because only so many people could be allowed in church. I know at my parish, St. Peter's, even though that church can seat between 900 to 1,000 people, the limit was 145. So for the second time, and actually now the third time in my life, I attended Holy Week services via the medium of television. And this particular case, this year, I watched the Catholic network out of Watertown, Massachusetts, and they carried the Holy Week services from Holy Cross Cathedral in South Boston. Sean Patrick O'Malley, Cardinal of Boston, did the honors. Now, with a name like Sean Patrick O'Malley, it wouldn't take much of a guess to figure out he was of Irish heritage with a name like that. But in many, many cases, in some of our denominations, where the weather was appropriate and so forth, church services were all held outside rather than in a building. Because there's less chance when people are congregating outside and keeping distance and wearing masks, there's less chance of getting infected with this coronavirus than there is when you're in a building and the air, a crowded building, and the air is not circulating. And of course, the idea of moving outside, this sort of falls into my theory that they've got to flip-flop the school year, and many of your classes have to be held outside. Many of our schools are reopening here in April, and they're still going to wind up the school year in June. And you just kind of shake your head. What kind of a learning year? What kind of a learning year has it been for our students? That's why I think one of the things they've got to do is run a number of tests to see where our kids stand. These last couple of years, the learning process has taken a beating. And, we can't say, well, we're going to try it again next year, and so forth. For example, let's take Burlington. Now, Burlington High School, that beautiful big complex, they've had to close. They weren't able to use it this year. So they had to go downtown on Church Street in Burlington and convert what used to be Macy's department store into Burlington High School. And that's where the kids now are going to school from now until the rest of the year. But they've got to take a real serious look at it and say, we cannot have another year like this year or last year. Now, something to be done next year? I don't think so. But it's going to be another disastrous year. It's the generation that's coming up that are suffering from it, not getting the proper training, proper education. And it's not only here in the United States, it's all over the world. This virus is spreading. In some areas, they seem to have it under control. Taiwan, small nation compared to many of the others, they appear to have it under control. Australia, they appear to have that under control there, but in other countries, especially in Europe, France, it's booming. Eastern Europe, Russia, we don't know because they keep everything secret, but I imagine they're having troubles battling it as well. China appears to have it under control right now. The United States, we seem to get it under control, and then it pops back up again. And, you look at the statistics right here in our little state of Vermont to think that, as I speak right now, 229 people have died in Vermont from this COVID-19, 229. And when you read the obits in the paper, many funeral services, of course, rather than be held in the winter, they're going to be held in the spring, in the summer. I tell you, the undertakers and the men of religion, they're going to have a lot of work once the weather gets good, and it's on its way right now. But probably beginning in May, when some of these burials will start, funeral services will start right through May, June, July, August, September, and so forth. And we'll see what it does during the summer months. Chances are it may go down because more people will be outside. And if they follow the regulations, wear a mask, stay separate, things are going to maybe get it under control, some semblance of control, and see where we go from here. But right now, it not only is a medical problem, it's also an economic problem. Many jobs are not available anymore. People are being laid off, or people are being furloughed, or people are not necessarily being fired, but if you don't have the work, if you're not doing the business, you're not moving the goods, then there's not the work. And if there's not the work, there's not the paycheck either. Granted, stimuluses are going to help, but they're a temporary help. And the idea is to buy time till we can get this thing under control. And we've got to look at the way we're doing things. For example, right here in the Rutland City Board of Aldermen, they meet through Zoom. And your committee meetings are through Zoom and stuff like that. And our state legislature. And you really cannot really get down to the work of legislating unless you're meeting together, coming together. And you can't really do that through Zoom and these other computer devices and all that. You've got to get together as a group to have very effective and very important legislation. And we have two constitutional amendments that are going to be voted on very shortly. One is to legalize, well, it's already legalized, but to make that legalization and abortion permanent in the state of Vermont. That is supposed to be brought up and voted on, I believe, by the session of the legislature in 22, which would be next year. And then it has to be approved by a public vote, which will probably be the March election of 22, which would be next year. And also, they want to change the Constitution, make a, as you know, the Vermont State Constitution, drawn up in 1777, was the first one to outlaw slavery. And I think they want to put a little more teeth in that amendment and make it a little bit stronger. Although I think that amendment states it all. You don't need to play it. You know, it's the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think our Constitution has worked well, the state Constitution, in prohibiting slavery in the state of Vermont. And I don't know why they want to play around with it. Why don't they leave it as it is? Because it's doing its job. Speaking of constitutional challenge, the state of Georgia, for whatever reason, many of the Trump Republicans in Georgia managed to push a law through the legislature which is going to restrict the right of minorities to vote. And I'm sure that will be turned over by the Supreme Court. It has a lot of foolish things in it, like, you know, it's going to be against the law. People are standing in line waiting to go in and vote. It's going to be against the law, say, to take them water or something like that on a hot day. It's sort of a throwback to the old Jim Crow era. And in Georgia, a lot of your businesses are revolting. For example, Major League Baseball has moved the All-Star game from Atlanta. And they don't know where they're going to have it right now, but it's going to land in somebody's ballpark, but it won't be Atlanta, Georgia. And of course, the All-Star game brings millions of dollars to the local businesses, and won't be happening in Georgia because of that. So I think it's just a matter of time before this law goes before the U.S. Supreme Court and is found to be unconstitutional. Looking at that law that Georgia passed, it's a violation, first of all, of the 15th Amendment, which guarantees everybody the right to vote. Well, actually, it guarantees all men the right to vote. And the 19th Amendment, which fleshed out the 15th, that says men and women have the right to vote. You can't be discriminated against because of your gender, or your color, or your religion, or your political beliefs, here in this country, which is a republic and a democracy, because we believe firmly in government of the people, by the people, and for the people, although in many cases it's usually by the folks with money. But I would imagine before the next election the Supreme Court will declare this unconstitutional. It's a violation of the Voting Rights Act, which ensures that everybody has the right to vote. And of course, what brought this thing on, I think, was probably the special runoff election in Georgia, in which two underdog Democrats defeated two incumbent Republican senators to even off the Senate at 50-50 and give the Democrats control, because Vice President Kamala Harris, as presiding officer of the Senate, has the right to cast the deciding vote. And of course, being a Democrat, she will vote on the Democratic side of the aisle. The huge stimulus package that President Biden has proposed, naturally is being opposed by Republicans in Congress. But here again, the Democrats can pass it on a 51-50 vote. But I would expect that there are a number of Republican senators and congressmen getting pressure from their constituents not to vote as a party bloc, but to smarten up and support what's good for the country and what's going to get us moving again, get the economy up and moving, get this virus under control, and not only under control, but see if we can eliminate it, if that's at all possible. Well, people look at it and say, well, how are we going to do that? Well, it's been done before. Smallpox, which ravaged the country for a number of years, has been virtually eliminated. Once in a while it crops up here and there, but we have the medicines and the vaccines and everything to get it under control. Polio, which used to terrorize people, especially in the summertime, when children are very, very susceptible. And of course the iron lung, where polio would hamper your breathing, and they would have to go into what they call a huge iron lung, and that lung would help them to breathe, to keep them alive. Well, thanks to Dr. Salk and another scientist, whose name escapes me right now, they came up with a virus, came up with what's called the Salk vaccine that got polio under control and virtually eliminated it. Once in a while, a few cases prop up here and there, but we have the medicines now to nail it, well, I like to say in the bud, and help people out. Those that come down with it, help them to recover and get over it, get back their abilities to be able to walk and be able to run, and so forth. So there is hope. As science works on this thing, there is hope that we will come up with a means of eradicating it. And yet there are a number of people, for one reason or another, that don't believe in getting vaccinated. One of the big problems they're having in Pennsylvania, of course, are with the Amish people. You know, the Amish, maybe I'm part Amish, I don't know. But no, the Amish people still live the way it was years ago. They don't have cars. They have buggies, horse-pulled buggies. And they don't have TV or supposedly stuff like that. They're a group of people that are living the way things were back around revolutionary times, pre-Civil War. The Amish people are known for being able to build things that modern day people use, like electrical appliances and furniture. They're very, very good at building furniture, selling it to support their community. They're located around Lancaster, Pennsylvania, or Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. But the idea of the Amish people getting COVID shots, they're just not going to do it. And yet they seem to be very, very healthy. They didn't get the salt vaccine shots either, and yet polio didn't seem to affect them or enter into their communities at all. So those things, you know, you never understand. But the vaccines are there. They're getting better. They're going to be improved over the years. And I think the big thing that scientists are working on, besides the vaccine, is trying to figure out what causes it. What causes it? It's the unseen enemy. And it's like the flu was, you know, for a while. We go back to what they call the Spanish flu back in 1918, the way that ravaged the country before they finally got that under control. And it came up to vaccines that control the flu. For example, if you get that, as we call it, the flu shot, you get that flu shot in the fall, and that pretty much protects you throughout the winter. You know, for a little, like a little bee sting for a nanosecond, it's worth it than spending 2 or 3 weeks and possibly even having to go to the hospital in the wintertime with the flu. Makes common sense. And it's the same way with this virus shots. A lot of people are opposed to them, some political reasons, some for the religious reasons, whatever. If we're going to get rid of it, the way it's spread, and the way it's infecting so many parts of the country, is that we all got to, you want to say, suck it up and observe the protocols, the mask, the distancing. As the weather gets better, spending more and more time outdoors. And, well, it's a challenge. And we have to accept the challenge, and wherever we're going to get out of this, you just can't have a few doing it. Everybody's got to do it. Accept this challenge, and let's get on with it. And are things changing? Well, those of you that are sports fans watching the NCAA, seems kind of funny seeing key basketball games being played with very, very few people in the audience. In the case of the women's NCAA basketball, all games were played in one place, and that was in San Antonio, Texas. And the national champs this year come from the West Coast, Stanford University. And those that watched the game on ESPN, the championship game between Stanford and the University of Arizona. Arizona was kind of a dark horse. And they slid into the Final Four and upset the University of Connecticut, which is a perennial contender. And they gave Stanford a good run for their money. Stanford won the game by 1 point to claim the national championship. And Arizona, well, Arizona's got a young team. Who knows? Who knows what next year will bring? And in the men's NCAA, the finals, we're taping this program on a Monday, and the men's finals will be tonight in Indianapolis. The whole tournament's been played in Indianapolis, NCAA tournament. It's all taking place in Indianapolis. And again, there are very, very few people in the stands. In the semifinal, the first semifinal between Baylor and Houston, Baylor romped over Houston. It wasn't even close at any time, except after the opening tap-off. And the second game, on the other hand, was an entirely different thing. Gonzaga, which is undefeated and #1 seed, playing UCLA, which is the Cinderella team this year, number 11, made the Final Four. And of course, those of you that watched that saw that final shot half the distance of the court that Gonzaga made. It was a desperation shot. Went in the basket as the buzzer went off, and Gonzaga stays undefeated, 92-90. And the championship game tonight will be Gonzaga, the #1 seed, against Baylor, the #2 seed, and should be a great game. If you watch Major League Baseball, and maybe the Red Sox fan, we probably should go and hide. Sox came home after last year's disaster. This year they had a lot of new faces on the team. Going to rebuild the team. And they were going to be a contender. Well, they were going to get off to a great start because they're playing Baltimore, and everybody knows Baltimore will probably be the doormat of the league this year, supposedly they said. But it kind of looks, Red Sox fans, like it's going to be another lost summer. The Red Sox left their bats in Florida, and Baltimore swept 3-game series at Fenway Park. And yesterday's game, unbelievable. Baltimore was up 10-0 at one time. They won it 11-3. Boston has signed a pitcher who, a few years ago, was a darn good pitcher. But time has passed him by. His name was Richard. And he didn't even get into the third inning. But the Red Sox bats went to sleep. Game 1, they only got 2 hits. 2 hits. Can you imagine that? And they're 0-3. And this week they're playing Tampa Bay, which are the defended American League champions. And unless the Red Sox bats wake up, Tampa Bay's in for a 3-game sweep. The Yankees did a little bit better. They won 1 game. They played Toronto. Toronto won the first and third. The Yankees won the second. Now, how Toronto's going to do this year, as far as the home field is concerned, we really don't know. With the Canadian border closed, Toronto may have to settle for playing their home games in Buffalo, New York again this year. They didn't really want to do that last year, but because of what was going on, everything, border difficulties with the quarantine, you couldn't have a visiting team going up there for a 3-game series when they had to quarantine for 2 weeks. So they played their home games in Buffalo. And they may probably be doing that again this year, playing in Buffalo until you get this thing under control and Canada opens their border again. You don't have to quarantine for 2 weeks. Because, you know, for a 3-game series, a quarantine for 2 weeks, it's virtually impossible. But anything's underway. The Red Sox analysis, they still don't have any pitching. They not only don't have a reliable starter, although there's a couple of young arms there that may be in time, but they aren't right now. But they lack a reliable starter. They lack a closer. They're trying to pan Barnes off as a closer. Well, Barnes is a closer. If he's got a 10-run lead, then he'll only give up about 6 or 7, but he's not a closer. And they need starting pitching. So same as last year. It looks like it's going to be a long summer for Red Sox fans. Where does the power lie? Appears to lie out on the West Coast. The Dodgers, the defending world champs. Again, they got another powerful lineup. Atlanta got a fairly powerful lineup. But Things have changed, folks, and it's very, very unlikely that they're going to go back to what we call normal anytime soon. With that, I wish you all have a great, great week. May Almighty God in His infinite wisdom continue to bless these United States of America. Take care, stay healthy, and I'll see you all next week.